Mr. Beacon podcast is sponsored by Wiliot, scaling IoT with battery-free Bluetooth.
Welcome to the Mr. Beacon podcast. Wonderful to have you with us. This week, we're going to be talking about a trend that's very significant in IoT, but more importantly, much more broadly in business. It's a revolution in the way supply chain is executed, the way it's performed. And we're seeing a huge shift now, which involves a lot of very interesting technology and systems to move from an older generation of supply chain to a newer generation of supply chain that gives much more visibility, continuous real-time visibility. And this is an incredible opportunity for businesses and also for us in the IoT ecosystem. So I am really pleased to have Mahesh Veerina, who's the CEO of one of the companies that is at the vanguard of this space. They have some amazing customers. They also have amazing investors. Intel Capital is one of them. John Chambers is also an investor and an advisor for the company, the ex-CEO of Cisco. So Mahesh, thanks very much for joining us to talk about this.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Thank you.
So maybe we should start off and talk a bit about this trend. What is it that is changing? What are the drivers to the kinds of systems that you are implementing?
Yeah, no, it's a very fascinating thing going on and a very exciting trend, Steve, right? So I see it as two major shifts, market transitions happening. One, the digital, that's impacting supply chain. It's impacting everywhere, but in supply chains. This whole digital transformation and going digital, right? Manual processes being automated and so on. And I'll elaborate a lot more on these 2 points. The second is the supply chains themselves are historically built more supply driven, and now they're becoming more demand driven.
Absolutely.
That trend, right? The second aspect of that is they were also very planning centric. You plan, you take the best laid out plans to battlefield and things start going wrong, right? So now there is a focus on execution side. So what they used to call this SNOP, sales planning and operations, is now becoming SNOE, sales operations and execution kind of platforms, right? So those are the two big shifts. One, more from just generally this digitization, and second is the what I call this planning and supply centric, moving more to demand centric networks. Now, that's the big shift. If you double click, there are some very interesting why and what, and we can go into that.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Let's double click in a second. So you are a company that is providing the cloud systems and also some of the tags, the hooks, the bridge between the digital and the physical world. And we'll talk about what those are in a little bit. Are you replacing systems? When you come in, are there a set of legacy systems, or is this like a greenfield area?
No, great question. So, pretty much if you step back and take a look, right, what's the current situation? Where is the market and how do they solve these problems? So historically, in the last 15, 20 years, when you built these supply chains went through a huge, I would almost call it, we're in a supply chain 4.0 era. They were all local, then they went kind of more suppliers and all that, then went global. Now we're into this 4.0 version. So how do you build them? These are in the last 20 years, you have a ERP system managing all your systems of record transaction, warehouse management system, transportation management systems. So over time, these companies have built up, or acquisitions and stuff, many fragmented data silos and data fragmentation, very rigid data model. So that's how they're built, right? One system doesn't really talk to the other system, and you have all the information, but you really don't have the insights. That's one of the kind of how this is solved today, right? Now, where is the need for this real time and all that coming in? As you build these systems, let us say you have take an example, like you have a pharma company making vaccines and trying to ship them. Once they leave your facility and there are multimodal hubs, you really lose visibility on what exactly is happening. And the only way they keep track of it today is stick in like a little, what they call a data logger, goes through the entire journey, pick that up, stick it into a laptop or PC, and then get the data post facto, right? So that's now moving to, I want to know real time, where is my stuff? What condition is it in? When is it arriving? Is it in compliance? These are types of things that are bringing this whole real-time visibility and sensory stuff into the fore.
So are these data loggers akin to kind of the batch systems of the past? It's automation, but it's not real-time automation? Or what do you consider to be real-time?
So many aspects, right? So what happens is, let us say, as a pallet of these vaccines leaves facility today, it's a transaction in a system, the way it operates today. And then as it moves along, there are there is a truck moving it from your distribution center to an airport, sits there, got on a plane, there is another hop on a truck, and finally get to a customer, let's say. So all these you can almost think of them like waypoints along the journey. There is no data on what's happening really to that package as it moves through. It could be stranded at the airport. You really don't know if it really got on the flight. What condition is it in while it's moving, right? Is it exposed to the elements? So that data is being recorded for compliance reasons, but you don't get to see it until the end of the journey. So now with these modern systems, what's happening is you're putting a sensor on it, and it's giving you continuous signals through a cellular backhaul or what have you. And when it hits a geofence, you know exactly when it entered the geofence, did it exit the geofence? And now you can add in contextual data, like a plane data, saying, hey, it was supposed to be on a Lufthansa, whatever, LH24 flying Milan to Frankfurt. Did it really get on the flight? And where is it? Or it's left at the, if it's still in Milan, it's sending signals back saying I'm stranded here, right? So today in your transactional systems, you really can't tell. You think it's on the flight, you really don't know. So that's where all this real-timeness is kicking in. And at the same time, not just the location, you're marrying it with a lot of contextual data, saying what's the temperature, what's the humidity. If it's in a bulk container, is the door open or closed? Is there a tilt? All these, is it exposed to light? So these are all real-time, Steve, right?
Very good. So as a past engineer, this makes a world of sense to me. I mean, you'd want real-time, you'd want a continuous view. What is the business justification for investing in this? Because this sounds like this is not a trivial exercise that we're talking about. How does the CFO sign off on the kinds of investments? Because we're talking about a lot of connectivity, tagging, reading infrastructure, your systems, and changes in processes. What's the business benefit?
Well, number of benefits, right? If you look at, and also thanks to, I mean, this is not new. People wanted visibility. Visibility is a foundational element, but it's one of those intersection points in time. Technology is the other vector that's driving it there, right? I mean, you pick up your average cell phone, you probably have 15 different sensors, and for all kinds, and sensors are now shipping in billions. So sensors have become cheap. Connectivity and mobility is ubiquitous. Cloud is a centralizing thing again, right? And then all these advanced processing. So once all these came together, these solutions became very economic to implement, right?
Right.
And then the benefit for the business is on-time delivery, measuring number of these metrics. Is this in compliance, right? These are all big benefits. Really productive. If a vaccine package gets lost, you're talking losses in the millions of dollars typically, right? So these, especially in the high value assets, the ROI is huge. Is it in compliance? Is there a product loss? Is there on-time delivery, which has a customer impact? So that's how they're evaluating the ROI. Same thing in indoor facilities as well, we're seeing, right? When a bulk material moves through a process within a facility, if it gets exposed to ambient temperature for too long, it has to go through a quarantine cycle, costs millions of dollars for them, right? So the ROI is very easy to justify. And this technology improvement simplified the implementation pretty much, right? And pretty cost effective to do this.
And it seems to me like if you know where everything is in your supply chain, you can potentially have less of it and you can have more of it, more of what you have left in the right place at the right time. It's freeing up capital. It's driving better conversions of sales, all of these things as well.
Exactly. You're hitting the nail there. That's the other, I was only talking about the condition and location and where is it. The other dimension is how many of it do you have?
Yes.
If you go into the CPG and retail space, is the right stuff, right place, right time? Right. And this buffer stock issue is a big thing. So that's another dimension now. Unit level economics can easily measured as well, right? So yeah, absolutely.
And but I can see why the focus, given what we're going through with the pandemic and vaccines, I think at the front of everyone's mind. So let's come back to that use case in a minute. But I think what we should do now is just talk a bit about Cloudleaf. And perhaps you can tell us a bit about your company and what you're offering that makes this transformation feasible for some very large customers.
Right. Again, let me step back, give you that big picture. Why this, right? I talked a bit about how the situation is. Most of the supply chain is architected as large-scale siloed systems. That's one. Meanwhile, the world has moved on. Amazonification, we all experience that, right? Click, you expect same-day delivery, next-day delivery, you know where your stuff is. Consumers' behavior completely changed. They expect authenticity, right? Is this ethically sourced, sustainability kind of concerns. So that whole shift in demand-driven, very speed of delivery, all that is one of the dimensions. Then the last dimension is we are seeing this right now in this pandemic, right? Like the whole geopolitical and trade tensions, right? When there is a disruption like COVID, all kinds of trade lanes, and it's like a multi-point failure happening simultaneously. How do you cope with that? So this whole shift in supply chains towards digitization and towards more agile, resilient kind of supply chains, right? To be able to do at scale on demand is kind of where these are headed in the next decade or so. So that's the opportunity we saw as we got into this. This company originally was founded as an IoT company. Right? I'm one of the investors on it. Then I was on the board, then took over as CEO in the last 3 years because I found this a very exciting large-scale opportunity. Then we focused our energies on this supply chain because you can apply these technologies many places. We said supply chains are going through a huge transition. Let's apply that. So our whole mission is really powering these next generation digital supply chains, if you will, by bringing this real-time, continuous visibility, intelligence, and predictive insights, right? We leverage IoT, AI/ML, and cloud technologies to deliver this. So that's our whole mission. And I believe there is, I mean, I didn't know much about supply chains as I got into this, but I mean, entire food we eat, medicines you take, the clothes you buy, everything is moving through this pipe. And it's a complex global kind of network right now. And how do you kind of really bring efficiencies into that? That's what we're helping drive. And you asked a question early on in the beginning, are we replacing stuff? We don't replace stuff. While the systems are built like that, they have become systems of record. So businesses still operate with those systems of record. Like if you have SAP, 95% of the time we see SAP and multiple instances of them when we go in, right? So SAP is still there. That's used for all your transactional information, gap reporting, everything. But is it helping you in your operations when something is moving along in transit or in a warehouse or something? Very hard. So that's where we are moving in with these sensory technologies and all that.
And so who are the users? What are the roles of the people that are using them? Because we still have our ERP system. We have the manufacturing execution systems that are sitting doing their thing. Who are your users?
3-4 different personas that use, depending on the industry type and industry sector. Let us say you're more in the way broadly I think about it is supply chains as source, make, distribute, right? Today we address a lot of, the demand is in a lot of distribute side. How is it doing from my factory delivery to my customer? I call that like a B2B logistics, or from my DCs to direct to the consumer, which is a B2C or a direct to consumer. So it's like a last mile. The last mile has radically shifted also. So the distribute is one of the areas we serve heavily, and a little bit of in the factory or in the make, whether it's in the warehouse or factory. Those are the two segments, let's say. Now, if you look at by industry sector, it's either the VP supply chains. They want to get a dashboard of what's happening in execution. They laid out a fantastic plan. They know monthly, quarterly, where they want to go. But then today, what's happening operationally? Is this going to arrive in time? Is it in the right conditions? These are kinds of things at a VP level, getting dashboard, what's red. Then there are these operational directors and people that are functionally responsible, and then managers. Those are 3 levels we see. And these could be merchandising managers, planning managers, logistics managers, somebody receiving stuff within the warehouse, somebody responsible for shipping out. These are types of personas we see, Steve. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So if we kind of think about what's threatening all our lives, this coronavirus pandemic, and I'm sure there's a massive wave of research. We know there's research going on these vaccines, and hopefully we're going to have a few candidates. And so I imagine there are Herculean efforts, not just to manufacture the vaccine, but then decisions being made about how are we going to get this out to the people. You know, one option for this, and in some way, I don't know how much of this is new ground or whether this is just kind of, you know, we do this all the time. Vaccines are not new, but maybe vaccines on this scale are certainly very, very significant. If it seems like you have a lot of the building blocks to support that sort of effort, you can give people a head start, but what are the alternatives? Is it even realistic for someone to write something from scratch to do what you do? And this is maybe a little bit of an odd question. So another way of asking it is, tell us a bit more about what you offer. You know, what are the components? How long did it take to build it? What does it look like?
Right. It looks like 2 parts. One, how is the COVID-19 and this current vaccine effort? And then how is the platform architected? I'll get into that. So the first one, interesting one you touch on. We, as an industry, we are focused on pharma, life science, food and beverage, high value items, cold chains, FDA concerns, so on, right? And then manufacturing, high value manufacturing. And over time, we see by first half getting into more retail CPG environments as well, right? Especially with technologies like yours, with IoT coming along, right? So that's what we serve. So pharma, life science, interestingly, as we all see, COVID has kind of drove some businesses into hyper acceleration and some into, like, if you are in hoteling or airlines, we're seeing it all around, right? Slowdowns and so on, right? So in the pharma life science, it's been almost like a 12 to 18 month acceleration of their plans. They were all on this digitization track, but now they have to react and by December put plans which they have never done before, Herculean efforts, not only R&D of the vaccines, how do you stand up manufacturing capacity? Then the question of how do you distribute this? A lot of them are going to be in the beginning, the partners we're working with, they'll be in the cryo temperatures at -70, -80, so you don't lose this valuable material, right? Normally they ship in this 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. So a lot of care has to be taken. And like I said, historically, this is sort of ship and pray. And for compliance reasons, you have a little logger, you go to the other end, pick it up and see everything was okay or something went wrong. Today, they want to make sure everything is digitally recorded, take out the manual processes. And by end of the year, they're standing up these facilities to know where is their stuff, right? Is it getting to the right place? Is it in the right conditions? And we are talking literally billions of these doses going around the world, right? So it is a huge Herculean effort, and they're all over it. So that's where we are seeing a lot of opportunity, and we've been very busy just with that segment in this first half. Coming into it in March, we wasn't sure, like everybody else, like what's really going to happen, how is the demand profile going to shape up. So we're seeing a lot of acceleration. Food is a little bit behind that, I would say. And again, a lot of challenges there, bringing in new processes. Fortunately, with our platform, we are all cloud-based. You can light this up on Amazon or Azure or where have you. And Azure has become a very favorite platform for most of these companies, right? Because they're already enterprises on Azure. So light this up, and then really we made the process completely smooth by pre-integrating a number of sensors. We're completely hardware agnostic, so you can light these up out of the box and do some customizations. Our platform is architected. You get this entire visibility dashboard. So you onboard your assets or what have you, your shipment routes. And typically we can bring these through APIs and absorb it into our platform. And now you're setting up your business rules. Hey, I have these 40 lanes I ship regularly through, and it leaves Chicago, hits whatever Puerto Rico, and goes into Frankfurt and here, right? So these lanes are all architected and rules are written. After that, the machine is running, right? So that's how simple we made the system. Now, if you look at the platform architecture, second part of your question, very fascinating. I mean, we're in these times of, our whole view on this was coming into this. You touched on this in the beginning. These monolithic large-scale systems won't fly in future. These have to become more like the B2C microservices architectures. How did Uber build their platform for marrying drivers and cars, right? Like, how do you do that with a simple mobile app and a backend platform that's doing all this magic? That's the approach we took. So everything is a large-scale microservices architecture, runs around a Kafka bus, and we absorb all these signals, whether they're coming from your sensors, varieties of sensors which were agnostic, or they're coming from contextual data like planes, ports, or weather, traffic, what have you, right? And the third piece of data is the business systems data. So we have the data ingestion and normalization and all that that comes in. And we built a what I call a digital twin technology. This digital twin models your supply chain. And then lastly, we have all the AI ML algorithms that are computing condition, ETA, inventory situations and all that, and generate insights up. And everything is exposed as APIs on top of the platform for the customers to easily build their own experiences or integrate into their other services.
Very good.
So that's kind of how we go about it.
What are the technologies that you're currently using to link the digital with the physical? I'm assuming it's a whole basket of different tools
right.
to do that.
No, absolutely. I mean, so if you historically look at when you the many sensor technologies, right? These are picking up temp, shock, vibration, humidity, what have you, all that location data. Now, how do you communicate that the radio signal? BLE became one of the key candidates within either in transport or within, and then there is a cellular backhaul as well. So the way we connect, either there are gateways in the middle from these sensors, they're onboarded into our platform, or directly coming in cloud to cloud. It can be coming in from another system and then gets into our platform, right? And then we normalize everything is an event in the system. It's an event-driven architecture, and then it flows up the stream.
It's so exciting. I mean, it's a simple thing that we're going to continuously track and monitor everything, but it's a gargantuan task. And I think it can only be achieved riding some waves that are already building and flowing through the system. And you have like connected transportation. I used to work at Qualcomm. They started off, I mean, the cash cow that gave us the technologies that became 4G and 5G was Omnitrax, which was basically about wiring trucks through to satellites and that sort of thing. But, you know, where are we now, do you think, in terms of having all those different steps wired? I mean, it used to be that factories, you were lucky if the factory even had Wi-Fi, and now we're seeing beacon infrastructure and the Wi-Fi and the beacon infrastructure morphs. We're seeing containers that are wired. You know, from myself, I have a very vested interest. My day job is all about tags and so forth. But those tags are really only come into their own when there's a connection, a continuous connection. And how close do you think we are to having the life of a product continuously connected from materials, manufacturing, distribution, retail, and then the home? We're clearly getting there, but the question is when and how soon. And
I think it's going to be a process. Large swaths of it, as you said, is still greenfield, but it's starting. That's why I think of it like a pyramid. At the top of the pyramid, the high value items are getting wired. Like we announced a deal with a company called CSafe Global, which is one of the world's largest cold chain container management companies, right? These are bulk containers. Literally, they're outfitting their entire fleet of containers with these electronics now. You know when the door is open or closed, what is the chamber temperature, what is the ambient temperature, light, tilt, all that. And it has a continuous, since they're conditioned chambers, they have a battery pack, luckily, so they can run it. And it has a continuous connectivity, cellular, LTE, and in future 5G connectivity, right? Now it's like a moving little warehouse with all of that, and it's sending data. How do you take that data? How do you process that data and give the insights? That's what we do. We really literally void those. So it is coming very fast at us, Steve, the way I see. And we're seeing use cases everywhere, like high value assets. We have a customer where we have 30,000 assets wired up. They move across 13 facilities, and they want to continuously monitor what's happening, right? So it's happening very fast, and that infrastructure install is getting smoothened out. And mobile has become a very key piece. It's almost like a mini gateway in your hand that can communicate signals back to the cloud. So that wave is coming. And what you guys do, I see hugely, phenomenally going to change the world, right, in the next 2-3 years. We have a lot of demand asking us at a unit level. How do I track at a unit level what's going on? We work with a very large blood plasma company. And plasma is a very expensive material and rare commodity, saving lives, right? And every time plasma comes out, today it's all a lot of errors and manual tracking. They slap a little barcode, paper, it's frozen. They have to maintain minus 20 degree temperature. So you lose sometimes the little sticker on top.
Yeah.
Where do you get this blood from? What type? You can't trace it back. So they want to put electronic beacons on it, right? And trace literally 8 million liters a year, just this one company. So I see this coming at us very fast. The systems are not ready, so slowly as we build these platforms that can absorb this data. So my own prediction, it's next 2-3 years, I mean, all that talk we hear, billions of these endpoints getting connected, will become real.
Yeah, there's a massive push on 5G. We're seeing more and more containers becoming connected. And I think we've been conditioned by the Uber user experience of being able to, you know, the Uber's about tracking maybe your car or your lunch that's being delivered. But what I've seen is we're starting to do that with everything. And the idea of having a view of a factory where you can see every product, every person, every tool, every batch of raw materials, every piece of finished goods, and you just see it moving around in real time. And then you pull up and then you can see it real time flowing through your distribution network into the stores. And I think it's a little bit of a dream, but it's actually a dream that's coming into reality. And people will very soon expect to have everything connected and have a real-time view of where it is. And I think you guys are playing an important role of bringing all the threads together to expose that and make it happen.
No, absolutely. We see we're working with one of the retailers. Again, use cases illustrate this very well, right? A large apparel retailer, stuff lands in the country, goes through a transloading dock, they say, where they break up the containers into smaller packages to distribute. And they have 16 different distribution centers around the country, about a 1,300 store footprint. The flow of inventory through that chain, while their systems, ERP systems know, oh, we got whatever, 100,000 pieces of this, 100,000 pieces of that, they just can't tell exact layout of that inventory. It's more a transactional end of the day, end of the week or something. They would rather get some sort of a real-time visibility where that flow is, how much is in the stores. And interestingly, I found it's a common case, I guess. A third of that could be unproductive inventory. In their game, their cash is tied up in inventory. How fast do you turn that back into the cash is the game. So knowing where it is, how much of it, which kind, and what is happening is very important. And if you have that visibility, when an omni-channel request comes in, you know exactly where to fulfill from or where to direct it. And this whole growth of e-commerce is driving even more this visibility towards that, right? And then driving that unproductive inventory down so they don't have to do markdowns or out of season or liquidations and recoup more cash out of it. So applications abound, and pretty much next 2-3 years, you'll see this explosion, and COVID has only accelerated. You look at, we're seeing so many of these bankruptcies and closures on one side, right? And the ones that are left have to compete with Amazon pretty much. And e-commerce is probably going to double or triple after this. How do you cope with that, right? So it's very fascinating times.
Wonderful. Well, Mahesh, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. I know it's simple where people have to go to find out more about you, cloudleaf.com, right? And thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it.
So I don't know, are you a particularly musical person? Is music a big part of your life?
I enjoy music, but I wouldn't say I don't sing or I don't play instruments. None of those talents.
You and me
but
both.
I do enjoy music, and having grown up in India and then traveling globally, I enjoy all kinds of music. So.
Fantastic. So what would you choose if you were on this trip to Mars and you just had 3 songs that you could take? What would your...
Yeah, that was a good question and difficult one to think with the long trip. So I thought of, Steve, like think of it like 3 things. One, something that brings me memories back from what I grew up. You're on a long journey, keeps you kind of going, and it's all memories, right, when you're on that. So one was from my childhood growing up, my local music in the South India. There's some beautiful melodious music, right? There are, mostly it's duets. People wouldn't know that on this call, but maybe a few of them. But there is a song, it's language in Telugu, right? That's what we speak. So there's 2 famous singers, Ghantasala and Susila.
All right.
Their songs are I'll pick one of their songs. There's so many to pick. That kind of triggers my memories, I thought, and my childhood growing up and all that.
Very good. And if there was one of their songs, which one would you choose?
I don't know. So many of them. There's people who know the lyrics. I would say, ooh, there's a song called, I'll maybe sing a little bit. Ooh, halu gusa gusa lade. This is a beautiful song, right? It's like a romantic song. Means these thoughts are going through your head and they're whispering in your ear. That's what I just said means, right?
Fantastic. And so when did you move from India? How long did you be there?
Almost 30 plus years. I came here actually January 1st, 85. Landed in snow in Detroit, actually.
Amazing. Okay, so that's a great start. And I love it when people choose personal songs. Sometimes people choose songs and they're trying to be clever, but so that's great. And what would your second song be?
My second song. So I thought something that triggers memories and all that, childhood and everything, right? You're on this. Second is something that relaxes me. I listen to some classical music. By no means any expert there, but I enjoy. Yeah. And one thing I never get bored hearing again and again is this Mozart symphony, right? Like a piano concerto number 21. I don't know if you ever heard that. It's a very popular one. Andante, it's a very slow rolling. I never get tired. I hear that again and again. So I thought something that relaxes me. That's one. It was in a famous movie. It's called Elvira Madigan. That's a tune I like. Beautiful. Then lastly, it was a tough one. 80s music, probably 80s, something in the 70s, 80s that energizes me, right?
Right.
Some rock. I mean, I had a tough time. I was looking at Elton John, Rocket Man, or a Bee Gees, Staying Alive.
Very good. We haven't had Staying Alive, but that would be very appropriate.
Yeah, Staying Alive is what I was thinking.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thanks for indulging us. And I love that you took a personal approach to choosing those songs.